Hey friends, what's up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Nun Vav, Daf 56 of Masechta Yevamos. Friends, today's Daf we, I don't know, what do you want me to tell you? We continue talking a shtick about Ha'aroya and some other things related to Yibum. Friends, we're going to jump in on the second line of Daf Nun Vav Amud Aleph. Echad Amayre ve Echad Agoymer Kone. Oh, so the Mishnah had said that whether the fellow is Mayre, whether he does Ha'aroya, partial penetration, or Gomer, or complete intercourse, well, that's Yibum. My Kana, what does it mean that Kana? What does it mean that whether Ha'aroya, whether Gomer, then he's Kana? What does that mean? My Kana. Rav Omer Kona Lako. Rav said that they're basically married in every sense of the word. Let's go weiter for a second. Ushmuel Omar Leikona Elu Dvar Hamurim Beparsha. Whereas Shmuel says, no, it's not, Ha'aroya is not enough to be, meaning obviously if Shimon and Sarah have intercourse with each other and then now they're married in every sense of the word. However, if it's just Ha'aroya, So then that's the shaila. If it's just ha'aroya, are they married in every sense of the word or not? So Rav says yes. Shmuel says no. Only for the things that are mentioned in the context of Yibum. If you only do ha'aroya, so then it's enough that, for Shimon to be able to inherit Ruvain, and that Sarah no longer needs to do Yibum because, right, the ha'aroya is considered that she doesn't need to do Yibum anymore. But something, for example, like if he's a kohen, can she eat truma? Rav says yes. Shmuel would say no. So if Ruvain and Sarah were married, and Ruvain is a kohen, and when Sarah was married to Ruvain, she was able to consume truma, and now Ruvain dies, and Shimon does ha'aroya with Sarah, so then the Divrei Hakol Ochla. Everyone agrees that, okay, she can resume eating truma. Because she was initially eating truma when she was married to Reuven. Ki plige, where we have this machlokas between Rav and Shmuel, mina erisin, is when Reuven and Sarah were only engaged, they weren't married, and therefore, since they were only engaged, she was not yet eating truma, because they weren't married yet, only engaged. Rav Amar Ocheles, Rav says, but nonetheless, when Shimon does ha'aroya with Sarah, so then she can now start eating truma. Diha Rabbi Rachmana bi Ashogeg Kemezid, because we had said in the context of Yibum, even Bias, Shogeg, Mezid, they all work by Yibum, and therefore Mimele, right, these kind of weaker kinds of Bias work with Yibum. So then Mimele also Ha'aroya would be just fine, and she can now eat Truma. Ushmuel Omar, and Shmuel says, Ki Rabbi Rachmane, when the Torah includes Shogeg and Mezid, Le'ukmei b'makom Baal, is just to, make Shimon sort of on the same level as Ruvain was. La'alume mi Baal lo, but not to make Shimon stronger than Ruvain, and therefore if Ruvain, right, so therefore if Ruvain, if there was only Erison, so then Sarah was not able to eat truma on account of Ruvain's being a kohen. When Ruvain dies and Shimon does ha'aroya, then that's not enough to now enable her to eat truma, which is something that even Ruvain was unable to do since they were only engaged and not married. Shimon through ha'aroya is not going to be able to give her an upgrade to be able to eat truma. Now, of course, if there is actual bia, proper bia, complete bia gemura, so then she would be able to eat truma because then they're mamish married. But just from ha'aroya, says Shmuel, that would not be enough. If she wasn't eating truma when she was by Reuven, so then she's also not going to eat truma when she's by Shimon. The Oz Shmuel L'Taimei, and Shmuel goes according to his reasoning. The Amar of Nachman Amar Shmuel, Kol Shabal Maichil, Yavam Maichil. If Ruvain was, enabled Sarah to eat Truma, then Shimon enabled Sarah to eat Truma. Chol She'ena Bal Maichil, Yavam Ena Maichil. And if Ruvain was unable, right, if Sarah was unable to eat Truma on account of Ruvain, then Sarah is unable to eat Truma on account of Shimon, when it's only kind of like Ha'aroya, but not, Gemar Bia. Meisvei. Says the Gemara, the Meisvei we have a kasha. Bas Yisrael pikachas, pukuchas. Bas Yisrael pikachas. In Bas Yisrael, regular, Bas Yisrael, shenisarsu the kohen piker, who got engaged to a kohen. Okay, so you have a Bas Yisrael, married to a kohen, big simcha. V'lehispik l'chon sa'ad shenischarish. But before there was kiddushin, before there was nisuin, before they actually got married, so then he became a cherish, right? He's deaf, and therefore, a cherish is unable to be makadosh a woman, and therefore we say that just like he's unable to be makadosh a woman, we also then say that he's unable to marry, right? To do nisuin either, and therefore by the time that nisuin, so they got engaged, and he wasn't yet a cherish. But then by the time by the time it was time to get married, he was already a cherish. Eina ocheles, so she's unable to eat truma on account of him. Meis v'nafel lifnei yavam cherish. Now, if this fellow now dies, right? This kohen dies, and there's no children, and now the brother needs to do yibum, and he's also a cherish, ocheles. She's now somehow able to eat truma. All of a sudden, and we say in this sense, the strength of the yavam is stronger than the strength of the husband, because, right, again, what's the case? We have a Bas Yisrael. Now, of course, a Bas Yisrael is unable to eat truma. She's not a kohen, but she gets engaged to a kohen. Before they had an opportunity to get married, the kohen became a cherish. We say, okay, well, when they get married, she's unable to eat truma because he's a cherish. Now, if he dies and they don't have children, so then he does. So then, the brother does yibum with this widow, and then he's also a cherish. And the chiddush is that now she's magically allowed to eat truma. And we say that in this sense, the yavam is stronger than the original husband. So b'shlomo l'Rav Nicha. Okay, so this is understandable according to Rav, right? Who said that even when Reuven and Sarah were only engaged, and then Shimon does ha'aroya, so then we say that in that case, according to Rab, she's able to eat truma, even though she was unable to eat truma when she was with Reuven. And that's similar to over here also. When she was with her original husband, she was unable to eat truma. Now through Yibum, she's able to eat truma. El Shmuel kasha. But according to Shmuel, who says that, well, if she wasn't able to eat truma when she was married to Reuven, she also can't eat truma when Shimon does ha'aroya with her. So, if that's the case, well then here also, she was unable to eat truma with her original husband, who was a cherish, so she shouldn't be able to eat truma with the brother either. So Amalach Shmuel will respond and explain the brayso in the following way. Ema hochi, I'll say it like this. Lo hispek l'chonsa ad shenescharish eino ocheles betruma. That, look, if you have this kohen and this Bas Yisrael, and they get engaged, but before they got married, he became a cherish, so then yes, she would be unable to eat truma. However, konos v'achar kach nischarish. But if they got married and he was not yet a cherish, and then he became a cherish afterwards, ocheles, then she would be able to eat truma, because at the time that they got married, he was not a cherish, and therefore she's able to eat truma. Meis, and now if the husband dies, v'nafel lifnei yavam cherish, and now she has to do even with the brother, but the brother is a cherish. Nonetheless, ocheles, she's able to eat truma, even though the brother is a cherish. she's able to eat truma since she was able to eat truma when she was married to the first husband, since at the time that they got married, he was not yet a cheresh. And what does it mean that Yibum, that the Yavam is stronger than the original husband? Because after all, we're saying that she was already able to eat truma anyways by the original husband. So the ilu ba'al cheresh me'ikara lo ocheles ve'ilu Yavam cheresh me'ikara achla. The reason why the Yavam is stronger than the original husband, because by the original husband, if at the time that they got married, he was already a cheresh, so then she would be unable to eat truma on his account. It's only because at the time that they got married, he was not yet a cheresh. That's why she's able to eat truma, as opposed to the Yavam. Even though at the time that Yibum is happening, he's already a cheresh, still she's able to eat truma. So in that sense, the Yavam is stronger, is starker than the original husband. Vika da Amri, that those who explain, the other way to understand this is no. When we're talking about from engagement, when she was unable to eat truma, right? Meaning if Ruvain and Sarah were only engaged, and then, so at that point, Sarah was unable to eat truma because they were only engaged, they weren't yet married. And then Ruvain goes to Wellwood. So at that point, everyone agrees. Rav, Shmuel, everyone agrees she would be unable to eat truma since she was unable to eat truma when she was engaged to Ruvain either. Again, those who say mina erisin nechulialma dirihakol lo achla. Everyone agrees that if Ruvain died when they were only engaged, so then Sarah would be unable to eat truma when Shimon and Sarah do ha'araya. Because she was unable to eat truma when she was married to Ruvain. But the machlokas is actually when Ruvain dies and they were married. Rav says, look, if when she was married to Ruvain, she was able to eat truma, Ruvain goes to Wellwood, Shimon does ha'araya, so she can continue to eat truma since she was able to eat truma when she was married to Ruvain. The Avos Ochel Meikar Ushmuel Amar, where Shmuel says Eina Ocheles, where Shmuel says no. Even though when she was married to Ruvain, she was able to eat truma, when Shimon does ha'araya, she's unable to eat truma. Ki Rabbi Rachmana bi'ashoga k'mezid l'dvar ma'murim b'parsha. When the Torah says that by Yibum even shogeg and mezid works, that's talking about the things that are listed in the parsha of Yibum, such as Shimon being able to inherit Ruvain, and also that Sarah doesn't need to do Yibum anymore. But but not for everything, right? I.e., regarding truma, if Shimon only does ha'araya, so then she would be unable to eat truma. But didn't Rav Nachman say the name of Shmuel that we saw, about 15 lines earlier, that if the husband is able, right, if she's able to eat truma when she's married to the husband, so she's also able to eat truma when she's with the Yavam. So therefore, didn't Shmuel himself say that if she was able to eat truma with Reuven, then Mamela should be able to eat truma with Shimon Oichit? So Ema kol bia she'ba'al meichil ba Yavam meichil ba. No, I'll say that any bia that the original husband would be able to eat with, right, i.e. like a proper bia, so then she's able to eat truma. So also, if there's a proper bia with Shimon and Sarah, then she can eat truma also, right? They're considered married. But v'chol bia she'ena ba'al meichil ba, ena Yavam meichil ba. But if it's not a proper bia, so then also the Yavam would be unable, right, she would be unable to eat truma with the Yavam either. Meisve, we have a kasha. Bas Yisrael, pikacha, shenisarsa l'koyin, pikeach. If you have a Bas Yisrael who marries a koyin, v'lo yispik l'chonsad shenischarish, but by the time they got married, he was already a cheresh, eino ocheles, she's unable to eat truma since at the time that they got married, he was already a cheresh. Meis v'noflu f'nei Yavam cheresh. Now, if Ruvain, if this, first husband dies, and now she does even with the brother, and the brother is also a cheresh, ocheles, she's able to eat truma. So then uvazo yafe koyach yavam mikoyach baal, and in this way the strength of the yavam is stronger than that of the baal, because she was unable to eat truma with the original husband who was a cheresh, and now she's able to eat truma with the yavam who's a cheresh. So now this is a kasha on both Rav and Shmuel, because they both agreed according to this version that after that if Reuven dies after Erisin, so then if Shimon does ha'aroya with Sarah, then she would be unable to eat truma. So Bishlam the Rav Matayis the Taurus Meikar. So Rav can just explain it like Shmuel that explained earlier, which is talking about that no, if he's already a cheresh by the time of Nisuin, so then she cannot eat truma when the brother who's also a cheresh does yibum. However, if they got married and he was not yet a cheresh and only became a cheresh afterwards, so then she can continue to eat truma, which is similar to our case also, that once they were married, so then she can continue to eat truma. The Shmuel kasha. But according to Shmuel, who says that even after marriage, she's unable to eat truma if Shmuel does ha'aroya, if Shimon does ha'aroya. So then, how do you understand this Mishnah which says that she's able to, this Brisa which says that she's able to eat truma with the brother? So kasha, it's taka kasha. Tana Rabbanon, the rabbis taka taught, Bas Yisrael pikachas shenisar selikoyin Bas Yisrael shenisar selikoyin, who gets engaged to a kohen pikach. Fine. And by the time that they get married, he already is a cherish eno ocheles, then she's not able to eat truma because he's a cherish at the time that they got married. However, nolad labein, but what if they have a yingel ocheles? Now she can eat truma, because since the yingel is able to eat truma, so memele he can eat truma as since the yingel can eat truma, so then she can eat truma as well. Mesa bein. What happens if the yingel dies? So now what? Is it just basically reverts back to how it was before, that she's unable to eat truma? Reb Nosson says that she can continue to eat truma. Since she was able to eat truma when the yingel was alive, so she can continue to eat truma even after the yingel is no longer with us. Fine. The Chachamim say, Eina ocheles, whereas the Chachamim say, no, once the yingel dies, she can no longer eat truma, just like before the yingel was born. My time with Reb Nosson, Akam Reb Nosson says she can continue to eat truma. Amar Rabba says, Rabba hol shekvar ochla. Well, since she was able to eat, what's the case? The case is you have a Bas Yisrael who got engaged to a kohen, and by the time they got married, the kohen was already a cherish, so she's not allowed to eat truma. Now the yingel is born. So now all of a sudden she can eat truma. It says Rabbah, the Reb Nosson's rationale is that even after the yingel dies, she can continue to eat truma, since she was able to eat truma when the yingel was born, so then she continues to eat truma. Abai says to Rabbah, let me ask you a kasha. Bas Yisrael shenises l'koyin v'mislei. Teichu, shekvar ochla. What if you have a Bas Yisrael who's married to a kohen, so now she can eat truma. The kohen dies. So can she continue to eat truma? No way, no how. Rather, when her husband who's a kohen dies, so his sanctity that she was able to chaparayim from goes away, and she can no longer eat truma. She's no longer married to a kohen, she can no longer eat truma. Achonami here also came in the mislay, when the yingel dies, so her being able to eat truma on the account of the yingel goes away as well. Ela Amar Rav Yosef, rather says Rav Yosef, Ksav Reb Nosson. Reb Nosson's opinion is Nisui cheresh ma'chilim b'truma, that if a cheresh gets married, so Yitaka can eat truma. Oh, so Reb Nosson's rationale is that actually, even when at the time that they got married, this kohen was already a cheresh, she can continue to eat truma. And Rashi says because even the mida oraisa, even from kiddushin, even when they're just engaged, she would be able to eat truma if he's a cheresh. So in general, she would be able to eat truma, right? In general, mida oraisa, an engaged woman, a woman who's engaged to a kohen can eat truma, but we're concerned that if she's still living in her father's house and she's going to have truma, the wrong people might eat it. So therefore we say wait until you're married. But and therefore, since at the time that the kiddushin happened, he was not yet a cheresh, so maybe it's good kiddushin mida oraisa. She would be able to eat truma, and then once they get married, he doesn't make a gezerah about the fact that he's now a cheresh after the fact that maybe then I think that even if a cheresh can do, if he does kiddushin, she'll be able to eat truma. He's not concerned about these gezerahs, and he says, look, even a kohen, in this case, when he gets married, if he's a pikeach, if he's a cheresh, she would be able to eat truma. Okay, so Elam Rav Yosef K'sav Rav Nosson Nisui Cheresh Ma'achilim B'Truma, that when the nisuin of a cheresh, she can eat truma. We're not concerned about the marriage of the cheresh because because maybe then he'll do kiddushin. We're not concerned. So therefore, that's where Ibn Nosson says that even when the yingel dies, she can continue to eat truma. If that's the case, no labein lamali. Then how come I need this whole yingel being born? Even without the yingel being born, if we're saying that she can eat truma on account of her husband who's a kohen, even if he was a cheresh, so mishum rabon. That's only in response to the rabbis who said that she can only eat truma when the yingel is born because the kiddushin of the cheresh would not enable her to eat the nisun of the cheresh would not enable her to eat truma according to the rabbis. V'liflo Ibn Nosson alai b'reisha. So why does Ibn Nosson then argue at the beginning? When the rabbis initially say at the beginning of the brayso that if this cheresh gets married to this woman, so then she's not allowed to eat truma, that would be the place to argue and say, no, actually she is allowed to eat truma. So shavaklu l'rabbanon adam simon musayv adam palagalaya. Well, he just waited until Ibn Nosson was very respectful. He waited until the rabbis finished everything that they had to say, right, about the yingel being born and all that stuff, and then he argued. But if that's the case, lesni meisa bein eno ocheles, Reb Nosson omer ocheles kasha. But if that's the case, then if Reb Nosson is being so respectful and waiting for the rabbis to finish, well then let them finish everything and then argue. But if you look at the brayso, what does it say? It says no la bein ocheles min bein Reb Nosson omer ocheles v'chacham omer eno ocheles. If Reb Nosson was so respectful, what it should say is no la bein ocheles meisa bein eno ocheles Reb Nosson omer ocheles. Can you let him mamish argue all the way at the end? Right? If you're saying that really he agrees that the nisun of the cheresh would enable the wife to eat truma, so then and the only reason why he's not arguing at the beginning and he's waiting to the end is to be respectful. So mamish wait all the way to the end. So we say kasha is taka gute kasha. Mechen abal al achas mikol arayos. The Mishnah had said, and similarly, anybody who sleeps with any of the arayos. So the kasha. Okay, so how do we understand that? Amilsa Amrlan Rav Sheshes says Rav Amram that Rav Sheshes told us the following thing: V'anarinu la'aynin mimasnisin, and he sort of gave us clarity from this very Mishnah. Eishes Yisrael shenenso afalpishim muteres lebaylo psul lechuna. That if you have a eishes ish, right? If you have a married woman and she gets raped, so even though she could remain with her husband, right? But psul lechuna, she would not be allowed to marry a kohen. So even if her husband is not a kohen, is a Yisrael, well, if her kohen is, if her husband is a Yisrael, so they could remain married. But let's say her husband now dies and she's a widow, she cannot marry a kohen because of this incident. So v'tanatuna, we learn in our Mishnah, v'chein habal achas mikol arayos amuz b'torah psulis, and our Mishnah says, and similar, right? So it talks about Yibum, and then it says, and similarly, somebody who sleeps with any of the arayos in the Torah or any of the psulis in the Torah, such as like a grusha to a kohen, So my v'chein, what does it mean in similarly? My lab, loshna b'shogeg, v'loshna b'meziv, v'loshna b'onis, v'loshna b'rotzen. It must be, to the extent that the Mishnah says it in the context of Yibum. So it says it doesn't matter if it was shogeg, mezid, ones, such as rape, or rotzen. Bekatani paslam is saying it's possible. So we see that our Mishnah would be, and we said, right, and then it says, v'chein, where are we? No. So, and then it says, v'chein, what was it? V'chein V'chein abal achas mikol arayos, and similarly, any of the arayos, so Eishes Ish is one of the arayos, so we see that even ones, right, Eishes Ish, which is one of the arayos, and we're saying also ones, so we're saying that will be, it would make her apostle, the Katani Pasla, and it's saying that she's psula, that she would be unable to marry a kohen. So the Gemara says, no, my v'chein ha'aroya. No, it says, and similarly with all the other arayos, it's talking about ha'aroya. That just like by Yibum, ha'aroya is Yibum, so also by Arayos, ha'aroya would be considered like sleeping with one of the Arayos. Ha'aroya deman, ilim the Arayos. We say, one second, if we're saying the ha'aroya of the Arayos, maybe the Arayos afinun mi Yevama, one second, that would sound like Yevama is the source, is the source case, right? We're saying that that ha'aroya works by Yibum, and then we're learning out Arayos from Yevama. But Adrabah, that's not true. Yevama yafinu me arayis. It's taka the opposite. The ikra ha'aroya ba'arayis ksiv. That the main place of ha'aroya is by Nida, which is one of the arayis. So therefore, it would not make sense to say that you're learning out arayis from Yevama for ha'aroya. So ella mai v'chein ashelo kedarke arayis. So okay, so let's say it's talking about shalok kedarka. If you sleep with one of the arayos in an unnatural way, so we say that it works by yibum, and also it would be considered arayis by arayis. Adrab, but that's not true. Ikr mishkavei isha barayis ksiv. Right, the main place where it talks about mishkavei isha is taka by arayis, from which we learn out shalok kedarka. So it wouldn't, yibum wouldn't be the source text that we're learning out arayos from Yibum. That's not true. If anything, we learn out Yibum from arayos. Ella, my v'chein ashalo kedarka dechai ve'lavin. No, it's saying, and similarly, it's talking about the shalo kedarka by chai ve'lavin. So it says shalo kedarka by Yibum, and similarly also by sort of prohibitions, shalo kedarka would be an issue as well. Omar Rove, says Rove, Ishes koyin shenenso, baila loke olea mishum zona. So if you have a woman who's married to a kohen, and unfortunately she is raped, so then she and her husband are not able to remain together. And if they do, so then her husband gets malchus mishum zona, because he's being together with a woman who had a relationship outside of marriage. Fact the Gemara, mishum zona in mishum tumalo. What? He only gets malchus for violating right? What does it say? What does it say? Isha zona v'chalal lo yukachu. So he only gets malchus for zona, but what about tuma? Right? It says right. Acharei asher hu tamoah. It also says by forbidden relationships, so you should get malchus for that. So ema ap mishum zona. So say no also for zona. So for tuma and for zona. Masav b'zera asakasha below nispaso asura. The pasuk says that if a married woman sleeps with another man, and it was not against her will, so in asura she's unable to remain with her husband on this basa, but if it was against her will, mutaris, then she could remain with her husband. But it says vihi, and she, but there's another situation where even though it was against her will, she's still forbidden to her husband. What is this case? Eishes kohen. That is talking about the wife of a kohen. But one second. This is a lav that is coming from an implication. So it should all right from an implication of a positive commandment, right? And right from the fact that we're saying that in this case she's permitted, but in another case she's forbidden. But that should be treated like an essay. How come we're saying that the husband gets malchus? Zona. So says Rabbah, no. Rather, the way to understand it is that initially I actually would have thought that even by a kohen, by Yisrael, in all cases, whether it was consensual, whether it was against her will, and she should be forbidden to her husband. And then when all of a sudden the pasuk makes an exception by a Yisrael when it says that if it was against her will she could remain married to her husband, implying Deishis Kohen Kidikaima Kaima, implying that however a Kohen there is no such exception, it remains forbidden. So therefore, the point being that the reason why this husband, this Kohen husband of this woman gets malchus is because the default really is to say that in all cases, whether it was consensual or not, he would get malchus. The exception to the rule is made by a Yisrael that in that case they are permitted to remain together, but the default would be that it's usur and that the husband gets malchus. V'ikidamre, there are those who say, Amar says Rabbi Ishes Kohen Shenensa Ba'ila Lokalea Mishum Tuma, that if you have the wife of a Kohen who was raped, so then her husband, if they remain together, he gets malchus Mishum Tuma, because of the pasuk says Acharei Asher Hu Tama'a. So Mishum Tuma Mishum Zona Lo, we're saying Davka Mishum Tuma, but not for Zona. Alma Ba'onis Lo Karina Be Zona. So we see that in the case of Onis, if it was against the will, we do not consider it to be a Zona, only Tuma. Masav Reb Zeir. Reb Zeir asked the kasha, how could it be that he gets malchus? V'lo nispasa asura. It says that only if it was not against the will is she forbidden. Hanispasa muteris. If it was against the will, then she's permitted to be with her husband. And there's another case where even though it was against her will, she's nonetheless asura. Ve'ezo, which is this? Zoishes Kohen. This is the wife of a Kohen. And a prohibition that comes from an implication of a positive commandment is treated like a positive commandment. She shouldn't get malchus. Everything was initially included in Acharei Asher Hu Tama'a, when the pasuk makes an exception by an Eshes Yisrael that if it was consensual, then she's forbidden, but if it was against her will, she's permitted. But that's Davka by Eshes Yisrael, Michlal de Eshes Kohen Kidikaima Kaima, implying that the wife of a Kohen kind of just remains the default, which is forbidden. Now we get to a new Mishnah, Almona the Kohen Gadol. So if you have a widow who marries a Kohen Gadol, which of course is not allowed, Gush v'achlutzi the Kohen Hedjit, or if you have a divorcee or a chalutzi marries a Kohen Hedjit, Mina Erisin lo yochlu b'truma. So if they were only engaged, so then they are not allowed to eat truma. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon machshirin. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon say that they are allowed to eat truma. They're allowed to eat truma, right? So if you have an almona to Kohen Gadol, a grusha v'chalus to Kohen Hedjit, so according to Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, they would be allowed to eat truma. All right. So now, I'm sorry. So this is talking about if they were the meaning if she was already a bas kohen, right? If she was the daughter of a kohen, right, and she's an almona, and then she gets married to a Kohen Gadol or a grusha v'chalutza the Kohen Hedjit. So from the eris, once they do erisin, she can no longer eat truma. But Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon say she can continue to eat truma. Nisarmalu or nisgarshu. Now, if then they get divorced, or if the fellow dies, mina nisun psulis, mina erisin ksheris. So if they were mamish married, so then they cannot eat truma anymore. Right? They come from a house of kohanim, right? So normally the halacha is that bas kohen can eat truma. Now, if she marries a Yisrael, so then she can no longer eat truma. Now, but in this case, what happens? She marries, right? She's a grusha chalutza to Kohen Hedjit or amana the Kohen Gadol. So because it's a relationship that's not allowed, so we're saying that she's not allowed to eat truma anymore. And now, if they were only engaged and then he dies or they get divorced, so then she could revert back to eating truma once again, like when she was single. But if they're mamish married, then she can no longer revert back to being able to eat truma when she's no longer married. Says the Gemara Tanya, we're learning a brayso. Amar Meir says Meir kavachomer. We could say the following logical argument: Makidushe rishus in ma'achilin. If when it comes to the kiddushin of like a regular Yisrael, I'm a Yisrael, right? A regular Yisrael, he's Mekadesh a woman, she can't eat Truma. There's nothing wrong with that Kiddushin, but still she can't eat Truma. He's not a Kohen. Kiddush Avera lo kol shekin. And certainly the Kiddushin of an Avera, right? A Manu Kohen Gadol, Gushav Achus Kohen Hedjit, where that's mamish not a relationship that's not allowed, certainly she would be unable to eat Truma. Amrullah, they said to him, Lo im amart b'kiddushay rishus, shekein eino la'achiv b'makom acher. But one second, that's not a good proof. A regular Yisrael marrying some woman, I mean, she'd never be, a fellow who's not a Kohen will never be able to have a situation where he's going to enable somebody to eat Truma on his account. You're going to say, you can't compare that with somebody who is a Kohen, that in other situations he would be able to enable his wife to eat Truma, but only because it's, in this particular case, where it's specifically not allowed in this particular case, maybe she can eat Truma, right? Meaning when it comes to Yisrael, he's never going to be able to enable his wife to eat Truma. He's not a Kohen. But I could argue that by Amanu Kohen Gadol Gushav Kohen Hedjit, maybe she can still continue to eat Truma, since in other situations a Kohen would enable to eat Truma, so maybe she can still eat Truma in this case. So maybe it's not a good comparison. Friends, I gotta run. Peace out.